talked about symptoms. A big part of our community and the people that we test, our executives, are actually quite fit, and they would want to know, athletics-wise, if it helps with athletic performance, and or the other side, if you're iron deficient, does it break down your performance?
Yes, no, absolutely it does. So Toby Richards is a colleague of mine who's from the UK that's done some studies, because he and his wife are also athletes, and his wife is also an endurance athlete. So they were very interested in this question, as have been many other people, but this is now some of the work I know. And what they did was they looked at women who are iron deficient versus others, and looked at their ability to increase their fitness level over time if they are iron deficient. And what is interesting is they do increase fitness with exercise over time, and then they hit a wall. But the fascinating thing was they did not plateau there. They actually went down despite continued exercise. So you're doing all that hard work, to get your miles or kilometers in every week, and then you get worse. And I think many people will tell you that that's exactly what they experience. They've been exercising so hard, but it's actually no longer getting better. And I think there's other things that we can talk about with regards iron and sport as well. I don't know if you want to talk about the patients who's got maybe too much iron, or have got the.
While you've got it, let's go with it.
So there was this very interesting study done on French sports people doing Nordic skiing, rowing, and judo, and they looked at the Olympic champions, world championship champions, and the European champions, and they found that 80% of them carried a gene that if you have 2 copies of that gene, you would have been iron overloaded. But in this case, these people were just what we call carriers. They had 1 copy of the gene. Now, 1 copy of the gene is not harmful, but it protects you from iron deficiency because you absorb a little bit more iron than the normal person. 80% of those champions carried this gene. And that is actually fascinating, because this gene is very common in people from European descent. It's sort of a gene that comes from the Celtic region. It's thought to come from originated among the Celts about 4,000 years before Christ, and it's in America and Canada, 10% of the population actually have 2 copies of the gene.
Wow.
In a study on 100,000 people. It's super common, and something we need to perhaps talk about later as well, because I think that's got its own. Too much iron is also not good.
Yeah, so obviously in sport, you've got a higher demand for iron, you need more, and you lose more.
Yes.
Through sweat and things like that. So, iron, we should actually think of iron like we think of thyroid hormone. You've got that bracket where you need to be in.
Correct.
And we should all know our levels.
Yes. So just for example, I think it's an important point. So you might be, your hemoglobin might remain the same, but your iron improves. Let's say you start with low iron and you now take a supplement or you take an infusion, your iron goes up to normal. The hemoglobin might be unchanged, but your fitness and your endurance will improve. So, and the reason for that is the ATP production that we spoke about earlier. And inside your muscle cells, like hemoglobin in the red blood cells, you've got another protein called myoglobin, which is the local oxygen store. And inside the myoglobin, you've also got iron that can store oxygen for you when you're doing exercise. So if you're low in iron, you might have normal red cells, but you might not have enough of these stores in your muscle cells, and you're going to feel it.